Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you felt genuinely well? Not just fine, not just getting by, but truly energized, clear-headed, and strong. If you had to think about that for a moment, this video is for you. Here's something that stopped me cold when I first encountered it. Something I've carried with me through more than 12 years of clinical practice. The average American man lives nearly 6 years less than the average American woman. 6 years. That's not a small gap. That's grandchildren you might not meet, retirement trips you might not take, quiet moments with the people you love most that simply never happen. And the reason most people assume? Men take risks. Men are reckless. But in all my years, sitting across from patients, listening to their stories, reviewing their labs, watching their health shift season by season, I've learned that's not the real story. The real killers aren't dramatic. They're ordinary. They're quiet. And most men never see them coming. My name is Dr. Sarah Malik, and today I want to walk you through the 5 habits that are genuinely shortening men's lives. And I promise you, number 1 will surprise you. Most people assume it's alcohol. But alcohol? That's only number 5. Before we go further, if you find this helpful, please hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I genuinely love hearing from the men in this community. It reminds me why this work matters so much. Now, let's get into it. Coming in at number 5, alcohol now, before you roll your eyes and say, I've heard this before. Stay with me. Because the real danger isn't what most men think. The CDC estimates alcohol takes roughly 2 to 3 years off the average man's life. That sounds almost manageable, doesn't it? But that's the average. The men who binge drink, who pour 3, 4, 5 drinks on a Friday night after a brutal week can lose 10, 15, even 20 years. Here's the part I want you to really sit with because I see this pattern over and over in my practice. The problem isn't drinking every day. It's the way so many men drink. It's the weekend pattern. It's going hard after holding it together all week. And that pattern, drinking fast, drinking to feel it, drinking to finally exhale, is exactly what overwhelms your liver. Your liver can only process about 1 drink per hour. When you push past that, liver cells start dying faster than they can regenerate. Inflammation builds. Fat begins accumulating in tissue that was never designed to store it. And after 40, I see this constantly in my patients, the liver's ability to bounce back slows dramatically. The same amount you handled at 25 does 2 or 3 times the damage at 55. The biology simply changes and the body keeps score. And it doesn't stop at the liver. Poor sleep, rising blood pressure, lower testosterone, higher anxiety, more inflammation threading through the entire body. Most men never connect these dots. They just feel off, sluggish, foggy, and they don't understand why. The fix isn't perfection, it's awareness. Give yourself a couple of alcohol-free days each week. Slow down when you do drink. Give your liver the rest it's quietly asking for. Small shifts produce real, measurable results. But remember, alcohol is only number 5. What comes next is far more dangerous. Number 4 is something that walks into my office in disguise almost every single week. Chronic stress. And it ranks above alcohol in terms of the damage it causes. That surprises almost everyone I tell. A long-running Harvard study found that men living under sustained, unrelenting stress lose an average of more than 4 years off their lives. But even that number barely captures what's actually happening inside the body. When stress becomes your background noise, not a moment of pressure, but a constant low hum that never switches off, the hormone cortisol floods your system. Short bursts of cortisol are protective. They help you respond, react, recover, but long-term cortisol is corrosive. It weakens the immune system. It tightens blood vessels and strains the heart. It pushes blood sugar higher and higher. And it quietly destroys sleep quality even when you're lying in bed for 8 full hours. I always tell my patients, think of the body like a beautifully engineered machine. Chronic stress is like running that machine with no coolant. Everything still moves, but the parts are grinding down from the inside, wearing away where you can't see it. And here's the cultural piece that troubles me most. As a doctor and as a woman who has watched so many men suffer in silence, so many men are taught from boyhood to push through, to stay quiet, to measure their strength by how little they ask for. So they bottle it all up and the pressure just builds. No release valve, no outlet, not an explosion, just a slow, invisible collapse. But chronic stress has a real weakness. You don't have to solve everything to begin healing. A genuine walk outside, an honest conversation with someone you actually trust, an hour spent doing something that brings you real joy, not just distraction, but joy. These aren't luxuries. As a physician, I want you to hear me say this clearly. These are medicine. Give your nervous system permission to come down, and your body knows exactly how to respond. And remember, that's only number 4. The habits ahead are even more dangerous. Number 3 is the one that catches most men completely off guard. Social isolation. And the dangerous part is how slowly, how gently it sneaks up on you. In their 20s, most men have full lives, friends, teammates, social circles, a sense of belonging. Then the 40s arrive. Work takes over. Family becomes everything. Friendships drift quietly to the edges, then fall away altogether. And one day, a man in his 50s looks around and realizes his entire world has narrowed down to just a handful of relationships, sometimes just one. We are not built for that. Human beings are wired for connection at the deepest biological level. And when that connection disappears, the body doesn't just feel lonely, it reads isolation as a threat. A landmark analysis of over 300,000 people found that social isolation raises the risk of early death by up to 50%, a level comparable to years of heavy smoking. Let that sink in. Unlike cigarettes or alcohol, isolation leaves no visible mark. There's no test for it, no diagnosis on a chart. It just creates a quiet emptiness that expands slowly over time. And that emptiness triggers real, measurable biological damage. Inflammation rises, the immune system weakens, blood pressure becomes harder to regulate. Self-care quietly falls apart when no one is watching and no one seems to notice. I want to be clear about something, because patients misunderstand this. Social isolation doesn't mean living alone. It means having no one to be truly honest with. No one who actually knows what you're carrying day to day. The good news, and I love sharing this with my patients, is that the body responds to genuine connection almost immediately. One phone call to an old friend, one coffee on a slow Saturday morning, one community, one group, one team to belong to. It doesn't take much, but it has to be real. Because genuine connection doesn't just lift your mood. Research shows it literally extends your life. And remember, this is only number 3. The next 2 are even more dangerous. Number 2 is something I genuinely wish more men would take seriously, and something I find myself talking about in my office nearly every single week. Not getting enough sleep. This one ranks above stress, above isolation, and most men are vastly underestimating it. Sleep gets treated like a bonus, something optional, something you trim when life fills up. One more episode, one more task, a couple fewer hours, no big deal. But your body absolutely, emphatically disagrees. When you consistently fall short on sleep, your brain and your organs are forced to keep running through the time that was supposed to be set aside for repair. Your heart rate rises to compensate. Blood vessels stiffen. Blood sugar becomes harder to regulate. Even a single night of sleeping only 5 hours can reduce immune function by nearly 30%, according to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. Men who regularly sleep fewer than 6 hours a night live an average of more than 7 years less. 7 years, stripped away by a habit that feels completely harmless, even reasonable, in the moment. And here's what makes it so tricky, and what I watch happen with my own patients. You adapt to feeling tired. The exhaustion becomes your normal. You tell yourself you're fine, just a little sluggish, while your cardiovascular system and your hormones are working overtime just to keep you functional. You stop noticing how depleted you are because depleted has become the baseline. The good news is that your body responds fast. After just 2 or 3 nights of real, solid sleep, 7 to 8 hours, blood pressure drops. Mental focus sharpens, mood stabilizes, and energy begins to return. The body is remarkably willing to heal when we finally let it. To start improving tonight, keep a consistent bedtime, even on weekends. Put your phone down at least an hour before bed. The blue light genuinely disrupts melatonin production. Keep your room cool, dark, and quiet. Cut caffeine after early afternoon. These aren't complicated changes, but they compound powerfully night after night, year after year. Sleep is not wasted time. As a doctor, I want to reframe that for you completely. Sleep is the time your body spends pulling you back from the edge. And now, the number one habit shortening men's lives. Not alcohol, not chronic stress, not even sleep deprivation. It's sitting. Just sitting. I know that sounds almost too simple to be alarming. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. A 20-year study following over 120,000 people found that men who sit more than 8 hours a day carry a 60% higher risk of dying earlier. A sedentary lifestyle can cut up to 12 years from a man's life. 12 years. The damage isn't visible. You don't feel it happening, but it's happening deep inside, quietly and consistently. When you sit for extended periods, the large muscles in your legs, the biggest calorie-burning engines in the entire body, essentially shut down. Blood pools in your lower limbs. Circulation slows throughout the system. Your brain receives less oxygen, which is why long sitting sessions leave you foggy, slow, and drained even when you haven't done anything physically taxing. Insulin resistance builds quietly in the background, raising the risk of type 2 diabetes. Inflammation rises. Your heart works harder just to push blood through a system that has stiffened from stillness. And here is the key thing I want every man watching this to understand. It's not the total hours of sitting that does the most damage. It's how long you sit without moving. After just 30 minutes of stillness, your metabolism begins to slow. Fat storage accelerates. Muscle tissue starts breaking down faster than it should. Use it or lose it. I know that sounds like a motivational phrase, but in my world, it's physiology. It's what I see confirmed again and again in the research and in my patients. Here's what I love telling the men in my practice, because I understand that life is busy and gym memberships feel like a big commitment. You don't need a gym. You don't need a new routine or expensive equipment. You just need to interrupt the stillness. Stand up every 30 minutes and move for 2 minutes. Walk after meals. Even 5 minutes makes a measurable difference to your blood sugar and circulation. Take phone calls standing up. Choose stairs. Park a little further away. Let movement weave naturally into your day rather than being something you have to schedule around everything else. The moment you stand up, your body begins to recover. That's not encouragement. That's biology. And as a physician, I find that genuinely beautiful. When you step back and look at all 5 together, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Men don't lose their health in a single dramatic moment. They lose it slowly, through small choices repeated day after day, year after year, quietly accumulating in the background of an otherwise ordinary life. Alcohol steals 2 or 3 years. Chronic stress can take 4 or more. Social isolation, 5 or more. Sleep deprivation, over 7. And a sedentary lifestyle up to 12. These aren't separate problems. They feed each other, reinforce each other, compound each other in ways that are genuinely sobering to consider. But here is what I want you to carry with you from this video more than any statistic. Every single one of these habits is changeable. Not perfectly, not overnight, but meaningfully. And the body doesn't ask for perfection. It responds to consistency. It responds to care. It responds to even small, steady shifts in the right direction. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tonight, but you could stand up right now. You could send that text to a friend you haven't spoken to in too long. You could set a bedtime for tonight and actually honor it. You could take 5 deep, slow breaths and give your nervous system a moment of genuine rest. These small acts matter because they signal something important to your body, that you are paying attention, that you are willing to show up for yourself the way you show up for everyone else. In my years of practice, the men who live longest and live best are not the ones who found some perfect formula. They're the ones who stayed curious about their own health, who didn't wait for a crisis to start caring, and who let themselves be honest about what they actually needed. That's not weakness. That's the kind of quiet strength that keeps a man present for decades more. If this video helped you, please share it with a man in your life who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more evidence-based content on men's health, longevity, and the science of living well. And drop a comment below. I read everyone, and I'd love to know what surprised you most today. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.